All right. According to what I see here, we're live. I'm celebrating, I suppose, my 50,000 subscriber accomplishment, if you want to call it that. And I'm here with Independent Man, who's just gone 70,000 subscribers. So congrats to you, mate. Yeah.
Thank you.
Getting up there. And all the way from the US, Beware of Darkness. How you going, mate?
Good. How you guys doing?
Yeah, good. Can hear everyone really well. Sound spot on today for some reason. Might have to go for daytime streams a bit more often.
Maybe that's it.
Maybe that's it. Not as much traffic, or at least here in Australia. And sort of when I called it, it's okay to have 50,000 subs. Of course, it was a bit of a play on the meme that we're going to be discussing a bit about today. The "it's okay to be white" meme. And having seen you guys on film before, I trust you're both white, so it's all right for us to talk about this.
Well, I tell you, there's certain types of Aboriginal Australians who claim to be Aboriginal, who are whiter than me. And I don't know if you saw that that recent small controversy about a Aboriginal poet who had a poem in the HSC in New South Wales.
Yes, you did a vid on it, and Porridge Powell's also alluded to it in one of his recent vids.
Just stunning. From any photo of that woman, no one would ever have picked her as Aboriginal. But Andrew Bolt got in trouble. I mean, he basically got censored for saying the same thing.
But when the guy initially wrote the remark about the poem, wasn't it that he didn't know that the author of the poem was Aboriginal, and he just basically came out and said, whoever wrote this, it's a shit poem.
Yeah, that's it.
And then a monkey could have written it.
Yeah.
Whoops.
Well, he used the 1,000. If you got 1,000 monkeys on 1,000 typewriters, and you could end up typing Shakespeare, that. So he used that analogy, and of course, the left media picked that up to mean that what he meant was that he was comparing the Aboriginal woman to a monkey, and he didn't. So first off, that wasn't what he was doing, and he didn't even know she was Aboriginal. But anyway, got picked up by the ABC and I think the SBS and a few other left-leaning outlets in Australia. It was all these racist Year 12 kids, when it was nothing of the sort.
Yeah. And Darkness, you probably wouldn't have heard, apart from perhaps seeing the video that Indy did on it, it wouldn't have been used at all in the States, I would imagine, that one.
No, I hadn't heard of it. I'm a little behind in watching videos. I hadn't caught that one yet.
Yeah. But obviously over there, you must be hearing a bit about the "it's okay to be white" meme.
Oh yeah, that's all over the place.
Yeah. Have you actually seen any flyers around your city?
No, but I'm also near a college though, so they probably keep those kind of people away.
Okay. What about on the grounds of your local college? Have you heard anyone talking about posters or flyers showing up on campus?
No, but I imagine they would protest though, because they do Black Lives Matter protests there. So I would imagine they would be having a conniption fit, and I would have seen them if they had.
Yeah.
I was just having a look at Know Your Meme this morning. I won't screen share it, but basically, if I can just find the tab here. It's basically, it says about the meme. "It's okay to be white," a slogan launched on 4chan as a proof of concept to demonstrate that signs with the phrase posted in public places would be accused of promoting racism and white supremacy. Haven't they fucking taken the bait on that one?
Oh yeah, totally.
Isn't it? It's just a stunning feat of mental gymnastics that you can run around every group in society that's not white, play identity politics, and then expect that some small subset of white people are going to play the same game. I mean, it's just a stunning. I mean, it's cognitive dissonance on some level, isn't it? Just hypocritical thinking. You're going to run around. You're going to invoke things like the progressive stack, which says that only black people can talk on specific issues. Only that in university classes, as we've seen in the United States now, they call on black people first, or women first, or black women first, and then white men last. I mean, clearly discriminatory, racist, and then white people turn around and say it's okay to be white, and it's white supremacy. I mean, it's just a stunning feat of mental gymnastics to get there.
In a way, too, I think it's a beautiful trap, as I think Sargon rightly pointed out, that there's nothing you can say against it's okay to be white. If you say anything against it, you have to reinterpret it, and really you only end up saying that it's not okay to be white if you criticize it in some way, because of course it's okay to be white, and that's all it says. It's not racist, it's not against any other race by what it says. And I noticed that all of the articles that I've been reading on it in the last couple of days have to reinterpret the meaning of it. They have to insert all their own ideology into what it actually literally says.
Yeah. I would say that all of it's toxic. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're just saying it's okay to be white. Identity politics, by definition, is divisive and toxic, and no one should play it. I mean, that's where we thought we'd got to in society, wasn't it? You look through race and sex and gender as minor variations that aren't important at the end of the day. You recognise that they exist, but that's not the most important thing. But now we've completely, we've reversed sort of 50 years of civil rights progress, essentially.
Yeah. I don't know how much they talk about Martin Luther King Jr. in the other countries, but that was definitely something big impressed upon me when I was going through school. And I can't help but feel that he wouldn't be rolling over in his grave. He'd be doing an Olympic level floor exercise, because it's just everything that he was for is this is the opposite of that.
Yeah, for sure. The whole, based on the content of your character and not the color of your skin, it's the most important thing. And I think when we argue from that, our side or our perspective, that we actually do look past that, and we criticize people on the internet for what they say that we believe is wrong or stupid, and the color of their skin or their gender doesn't have anything to do with it. I'll criticize a man and have criticized men just as openly as criticizing women if I think their ideas are wrong or stupid, and whereas they just have to make it about race. One thing I find really interesting about the articles is the description of the constant talking, not of white people, but white supremacists, and anyone that agrees with it is a white supremacist. Yet when they talk about the blacks that take the opposing side, they're not a black supremacist. They're described just as a black student or a black person, when really they're doing the same thing. They're just acting as if they're like black supremacists. That's what's offending them about saying it's okay to be white, because they don't believe it's okay to be white. They're actually racists and actually black supremacists. Yeah. And that's before you get into the white guilt brigade,
Because we're operating from a different set of assumptions. Our assumptions are that you treat people equally, equal treatment. In their world, they're entitled to treat you different because they're oppressed, right? They get special rights that you don't. And for them, somehow they call this equality in their mind, which is equality. What they're really wanting is equality of outcome. Because you notice all of these arguments boil down to, if you listen to them when they say things like institutional racism and systemic racism, systemic oppression, all that, and then you go, okay, now what do you actually mean by that? Then they'll point to something like, well, there are more black people in prison than white people. It all comes down to an equality of outcome argument. They seem to think that, if you commit crimes at a disproportionate rate, that you shouldn't go to jail, because that's essentially what they're saying. That the idea that the police are going along the street, scooping up black people at random and putting them in jail for non-crimes, the crime of being black, that's not happening. They want equal outcomes, but they don't want to put the effort in when they have equal opportunity to get there.
Well, even at that point, it's like, okay, if this is an institutional problem, and I do believe to a degree, especially in the United States, there are some institutional components, but what is hating on white people and making yourself into a privileged class yourself, where you have rights that whites that do not. How does that improve your situation? That's not going to serve to better the black community when 70% of the households are being raised by single mothers, when, you know, you got not even 13% of the population, because it's mostly black males, so maybe 7 or 8% of the population committing a massive majority of robberies and homicides. It's like, that's a problem that has to change within the community. That's not anything that a white person is going to be able to do for them and change for them.
When you said that there are some institutional things that may exist, I would imagine, though, that you possibly I would only imagine, at least, that it's only the police, because I can't think of another.
Education as well, because like for example, like I live in St. Louis, Missouri, and in North City, St. Louis, some of the schools aren't even accredited. So if you happen to find yourself living in that part of town, that really does affect your education. So those kind of things, because of what happened not that long ago in history, do still have an effect today. But is that the reason why people are out committing crimes, though? Is like, does that absolve their responsibility for the actions that they take? And that's where there's got to be a multi-pronged thing. This isn't going to be just as simple as tearing down all the institutions or correcting that problem, then boom, everything's magically going to be solved.
In education, I would imagine, or not imagine, sorry, here in Australia, I'd argue that it's the opposite, that they actually, you know, say every government form, for example, you go into any government department, it'll always say on the form, are you an Aboriginal or a Torres Strait Islander? And it's so that they can set them apart for special benefits and special help, and basically it makes them eligible for all of these extra privileges that you wouldn't get if you tick the no box because you're a white Australian. So I would say in Australia, the only things that I see that are institutionalised are against, or not so much against white people, but that's the result, but in favour of
institutionalized helplessness is what it is. It's a form of institutionalized helplessness. That I think there's a prominent Aboriginal leader in Australia who, you know, they commonly referred to what they did with Aboriginal people in the 70s and 80s as sit down money. They basically told them, you know, here's some money, you don't have to do anything, sit down on your ass, instead of actually working for it. I mean, it is a learned helplessness.
Definition of welfare.
Yeah, and it just specifically aimed at Indigenous people, and look at the results.
You heard me say before that I believe that there needs to be that welfare safety net. So welfare, I think, must exist on some level, because there's people out there that are genuinely deserving and in need of it. But pointing to those people on the rather than a case by case basis, but on the aspect of their gender or their race, that's just got to be discriminatory, because there can be black people out there that are working and doing just fine, and yet they can still front up and get all of these extra benefits when they're not deserving.
And I tell you, it's self-defeating, because if your argument is, let's say it's mass incarceration in the United States, one of the biggest problems there. Say, I think black people are incarcerated at the rate of sort of 12 black people for every white person, something like that. And it's okay. So Black Lives Matter and people like that run around saying this is a black issue. You know, black people are being locked up disproportionately. If you're white, you can't have an opinion on this. It's all part of white supremacy. But as I heard this young black libertarian guy say the other day, if you took every single black and brown person out of US prisons today, just release them, America would still be something like the 5th most incarcerated population in the world. So it's obviously not just a black person problem and a brown person problem. There's a problem of being locked up for minor crimes like carrying a gram of marijuana. That's the problem. And if you want a broad coalition of people to support your aims, then, you know, you go in and say, look, the problem here is not that black people are being locked up in disproportionately and you can't talk about it because you're white. The problem is people are being locked up for petty crimes that they shouldn't be, and we're filling up our prisons. There's a prison industrial complex that kind of promotes, wants more prisoners, and we feed it, and that's how you attack it. And so you get a broad coalition of support. You don't alienate everybody, and you can get some laws passed so that people don't go to prison for minor crimes. That's the way you do it. But no, if you keep yelling it's all about black people or it's all about whatever minority group, then you're not going to get a broad coalition of support, and you're going to turn people off at the end of the day.
The prison system in America is highly privatized, though, isn't it, Darkness?
Yes. Yeah, there's been a lot of privatization over the last 20 to 30 years. And on top of that, the war on drugs here has really, really goofed things up too, because when Nixon became president, he pushed really hard for the war on drugs, and with the Christian right in the country at the point in time, they started pushing really hard. So even people taking hard drugs but having personal amount of hard drugs that they were just using themselves, it's like, well, are you going to make a crackhead or somebody doing cocaine's life better by putting them in prison? Because a lot of times they've established 3 strikes you're out in this country, so you go to jail for a really long time. The third time you're caught with a personal amount of a drug that you get convicted of a felony for.
Yeah, it's pretty harsh. I mean, I've got, I'm pretty broad about the idea of drugs and things that think that people should be free to do what they want, like to their own bodies, provided that it doesn't affect anyone else. So, that can be a hard thing to argue, if you talk about the effect on other family members, if you're behaving in certain ways because you're off your fucking brain on drugs. But, I don't know. I just don't see drugs as a big crime.
I look at it as a medical problem. It's not a problem where you need to be throwing people in jail. Now, the people that are running, pounds of this stuff and making tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars off of them, I completely understand enforcing against them and being hard, because those are the people that are pushing, that are getting people hooked on this really addictive stuff. But the people that are being caught with personal amounts of it, though, even if it's the bad drugs, that to me doesn't make any sense. That's a medical issue that they need to have worked on, not be sent away to prison, because that doesn't solve those problems.
Yeah, and true, if you caught with a small amount of drugs, which are obviously for personal use, it demonstrates quite clearly that you're a drug user, not a drug peddler. So you're a customer, not a store owner. And therefore, you can interpret that, you're the victim of it in some way. Now, I'm not trying to attach a victimhood mentality. People are responsible for their own. I don't see it as a victim thing. If you chose to start taking drugs, that's something that you have to take responsibility for. You're not necessarily a victim.
Yeah. But I think that's one of the reasons why identity politics is doomed to failure, because it doesn't, it isolates, it divides, and it doesn't ultimately help people onto your side. I don't know if you've seen this guy called Mark Lilla. He just wrote a book. Now, he's a progressive, right? He's a progressive. I would probably disagree with 90% of his politics, right? But he's exactly right on identity politics. He's just written a book that basically says if Democrats want to win, and by win he means, look, we need to take back state houses and governorships and the White House. If you want to win, you need a broad coalition, and you have to do away with this identity politics stuff. And of course, he's been attacked pretty brutally by the left. And so I guess it'd be interesting to get BOD's take, because Lila's right, but I sort of don't want him to succeed, because I don't think the idea of Democrats taking back state houses and governorships in the White House would necessarily be a good outcome. But he is right, and the other part of it is if the Democrats don't sort this identity politics bullshit out, then the right of the political spectrum doesn't have to get their shit together either, because all they have to do is point at the left and say, look at their toxic identity politics. All they have to be is oppositional. And I think that's one of the big problems of the right today, which is that the right is, for the most part, just reactionary. Where's their grand vision? I mean, make America great again. It's not a fucking vision. It's a slogan.
Exactly.
And so that, so I'm sort of caught between this. Lila's right, and Lila's view should prevail that the Democrats and the left should do away with identity politics. And if they do, it'll force the right to come up with something better than just opposing the left. But at the same time, you don't want the left to be too successful. So I wonder what you think, BOD, on that.
Well, I think that's absolutely correct, and the failing, I think, in the States is I think when Trump won the presidency unexpectedly, I think everybody's thought, oh well, this is what was supposed to happen, but it's not a popular opinion, but this is how I really feel about it. Is Trump didn't win the popular vote, so he was fortunate that he had an electoral plurality, and the left was very much sure that this was a lock. So I think a lot of them stayed home and they didn't go out. Now they're going to be very motivated this next time around. So if they push the identity politics bar even more, I think it's going to drum up more support for them. But, without the Republicans, though, having any kind of a vision, though, besides, like you said, Make America Great Again is a great slogan, but, you actually got to put forth something, though, that's different. And really, if you look at American politics, the Republicans actually end up spending more money than the Democrats, and a lot of times when the Republicans are in session. So they're just as guilty of ignoring a $20 trillion massive debt that this country has that nobody's doing anything about, because we're sitting here, pissing and moaning about identity politics. But they're exactly right, though, because that has not been the strength of the Democrats, has been state houses and the legislature for a long time in this country. And, to me, the biggest barometer is if you look at the cities, and I don't know if it's like it in Australia, but here, the vast majority of the major cities have been democratically controlled for 50 years or better. And basically it's voting farms for the left, basically, because they throw out little tidbits to everybody and they keep voting for them. Well, if the Republicans don't offer a real substantial alternative, then there's going to be more people looking for the identity politics tidbits. So I think they're right to a degree, but I think they also think there might be a case to be made, though, that at least in this country that's not going to be a foolproof thing, and that they could conceivably take over some of these things. Not in all states, but in some states.
What you say about the Democrats, or what here we consider the left, populating the city areas in the states, that's the same in Australia. All the lefties and progressives of Australia all live in the metro area, and it's not that it's completely inhabited by them, but that's where the majority of them are. So that would be the same as in the States.
Yeah, but I would say one of the differences is that our right-wing government, which is not conservative, it's right of centre, is pretty much on board with the left on most issues. So they're, whilst I believe in that climate change is real, man-made climate change, I don't believe that we should turn our energy security upside down to do anything about it, because, as our chief scientist has already said, it won't actually achieve anything. But our right-wing of outright of centre government believes in it, goes along with it. I mean, we have an unfortunate situation in Australia where we have a right of centre government with a prime minister who is actually left of centre. He's actually running the wrong party. He should be running the Labor Party. So we have consensus in our cities, in our inner cities, from both the left and the right, on certain progressive policies that don't play well outside that little bubble, and they wonder why.
Yeah, Middle Australia actually can't. The perception I get from everyone I speak to, they pretty much can't stand political correctness, feminism, identity politics, basically whatever it, the whole LGBT argument. They just don't. Not only do they not buy into it, but they're also had a gutful of hearing about it. Every TV ad, I was watching TV with Mrs. Awesome last night. Every TV ad has a bearded hipster. I just sit there and call out on the TV, hipster beard, hipster beard, hipster beard, every ad that comes on TV. And whether the degree be large or small, every ad that has a man in it, he's been demeaned in some way.
Yeah. And did you know, have you know?
Or obvious that it's a put down. It's all put down of men. Men are fucking stupid. All the tech ads now show women's fantastic accomplishments. You know, this is what I created, and I'm a designer, and I'm all of these things. Man's just constantly some idiot that can't fucking put toothpaste on his toothbrush properly without squirting himself in the eye or something like that.
I do this thing on Twitter now with there's constantly ads coming up from Telstra and all these big companies that say things like women's awards, you know, for excellent in business, and they have one in each state. And then every ad that pops up, these promoted ads, is a woman doing something. And it's usually a woman doing something that women don't actually do. But and I've been calling these things like episode 246, in a woman does something, therefore it's amazing. And I just retweet them all the time. Because that's what it is. It's like woman does mundane task and it's amazing. And because and again, I don't believe that the corporates actually believe this shit. It's just good old virtue signaling. It's a popular thing to do at the moment. Push women, push women, push women. So they do it. And, you know, it's these idiots, these diversity officers in large corporations. They go into, you know, the boardroom and the CEOs and say, oh, we've got this idea for a campaign. And all the CEO gives a shit about is, does it make us look good? You know, does it make us look good and it doesn't cost any money and it's good PR? Sure. Okay, do it. And that's why you get those stupid campaigns like Holden were running last year saying, you know, we're going to increase the number of women in the workforce. And then then you see how they get absolutely slammed on social media, on their Facebook page, on their YouTube video, absolutely slammed. And that just speaks to that disconnect you talked about before between the corporate board, the inner city elites, and the actual general population, who I don't think they give a shit about diversity. You know, they don't care about diversity per se. Like, I don't care if there's an Asian person on TV or an Aboriginal doing this. They just hate having it rammed down their fucking throats 24 hours a day. That's what they resent.
Yeah, for sure. And man, do they fucking ram it down your throat here in Australia. It's just fucking ceaseless. I can only imagine that living in Canada is a fucking nightmare, because any exposure to the media in Australia, again, we hear a lot about the stuff that goes on in America, but because you've got your First Amendment rights, that just seems to be the defining difference. We don't have that in our Constitution here. And so anyone that speaks out against the female heroism narrative in Australia just gets fucking pilloried uphill and down dale, at least from the mainstream media side. And what Indy said was correct, though. These virtue signaling companies that put out these endless fucking parade of, oh, there's a picture of a woman washing the dishes. How courageous, how brave, what a devastating, you know, superhero. The middle Australia just fucking hammers them on social media in the comments section for just being endless virtue signalers.
Yeah. No one can, like, there was an ad recently that was all over Twitter. It's gone away now. It was promoted. It was about a woman who, so she was in the Defence Forces and then she took like 18 months off to have a kid. And it was how unbelievably courageous this was and how the ADF enables this to happen. You know, that she can go off and have a kid and she can come back and she still has a job. And this was just amazing. And it was just about how amazing she was. She had a job, then she stopped her job, had a child, had a nice little holiday for 18 months and then came back to work. And this was an amazing achievement. It is, I've been doing a few videos about this recently. I've been calling it the promotion of mediocrity. You know, that's all it is. Mediocre tasks, amazing, unless it's done by a white man. And then it's just, well, you know, of course, that's what you're supposed to do, dickhead.
That's exactly how you know when it's bullshit, because if you substitute a man or a white man in place of any of these things, if it sounds stupid, then it's equally as stupid to bring it up that a woman's doing it.
Yep. And that's true equality, but you won't hear that.
Yeah, they're
speaking
they're
of
the fucking rails here. Go on.
Yeah, I was just going to bring up, speaking of this whole it's okay to be white movement, and you brought up Canada. Did you see that there's some chick, I don't take any notice of pop singers, but she had a white photographer removed from her concert, because what she does is she says all women of color come down to the front. She says, you know, the crowd has to make way and women of color have to be allowed to come down to the front of the stage.
What?
Yeah.
I wonder if she'd hear me yell out, "Go fuck yourself," from 16 rows back.
And so there's a female white photographer, as I understand it. She's female and white, and she got thrown out because she refused. I think she was there to take photos officially in official capacity to take photos, and she refused, and she got thrown out. She got manhandled out. I mean, that's like enforcing a version of Jim Crow, isn't it? You know, it's like, you know, you're supposed to sit in the back of the restaurant on the back of the bus, and you didn't, so we're throwing you out. Oh, it's fucking amazing.
Not to mention that those concert goers paid money for seats. You know, it's like it's not like every seat costs the same amount of money. So the more up front and center you are, the more you paid for your ticket. So now you're just being told that, you know, to hell with that. Somebody else needs to come and take your spot.
Yeah, who knows? I don't know if it was a matter of they'd all paid a similar price, and she just wanted the people in that section to come. I don't know, but it's just stunning, and the left
wanted to make a racist statement.
Yeah,
on stage in front of lots of people.
But I mean, my worry is that you know, on principle, I would say even if I liked this woman's music, I would refuse to go to her concerts because of something like that. But I don't think young people care particularly, do they? They don't.
No, they're being really brainwashed by it, if anything.
But so that's the thing too, isn't it? All the white guilt trippers will just move back. They'll just willingly fucking do it. They'll be of a mind to think, no, the black person should go in front of me because of historical oppression. I could turn around the mistakes of my grandfather's grandfather.
Yeah, I can never get. I can't see how people rationalize that, because to me, most of these movements are fighting battles that have been won. You know, especially when it comes to women and giving women preference for things, because you just have to look at. I mean, what's it like to be a young boy today at school, knowing that you are part of a generation of males who perform worse at school, less of you go on to university, you're more likely to commit suicide, get into a fight, be imprisoned, all these kinds of things. And yet you're being constantly bombarded with the idea that you're privileged. You know,
and it's because of things that happened hundreds of years before you were born.
Yeah, and that you never participated in.
Yeah, yep. And that's still setting aside that narrative that they're basing on the things from a couple of hundred years ago are only half-truths, in that white people were slaves, you know, the Sakaliba were slaves to the Arab slave trade. Where do you think the Western Europeans got the fucking idea from? You know, slave economy existed right throughout history. We're the only Western European civilization, the only civilization to abolish slavery. You know?
Yeah. I mean, BOD probably may have not have heard this one, but in Australia we have I think I don't know if I can say it's a myth, but it's close to a myth, which is we have a stolen generation. I think you probably have the same thing with Native Americans in your country. And I've seen a few articles in the United States where young Native American kids have been removed from their foster homes against their will because they have to be placed with Indigenous people if they have a relative or something. So in Australia, we have this same idea. There was a stolen generation where kids were taken from their Aboriginal parents and put in white homes. The reality is that they can't actually find many examples of this where kids were actually stolen from their parents. Most of the time they were taken from their parents because there was abuse, all kinds of problems in the home. That's why they were taken. But this line persists. And what they did, I'm eventually going to get to this story, which is what they did is recently in a school in Australia, they told young kids that were in like the first grade or something, you know, we're talking about kids that are about 5 or 6, and the teacher did an exercise in class with them where they said that, all right, today you're not going to be able to go home to your parents. You have to go home to somebody else. And these kids came home in tears to their parents. because they replayed this stolen generation thing. So as Gary said, this is one of these half myths that's not entirely accurate. Kids weren't just plucked from their, good functioning families and taken off. And they're guilt tripping 5-year-olds into believing this stuff. And as someone, I just saw a comment a few minutes ago in the comments where someone said, our kids are being raised not to that, and they don't even know that it's okay to be white. I mean, that's a reality. That's what some of these idiot teachers are doing in schools.
Yeah, and again, when I was saying half truths too, I was also alluding to the notion that yes, slavery was real for black people, but you're dismissing that it was actually a real thing for white people as well, and that it's actually been a reality for all people throughout any sort of recorded history. Slavery's always existed, and everybody enslaved everybody else.
Did you guys see? I was going to do a video on this, but I ended up not doing it. But there was a guy recently who wrote an academic paper that said, and he looked at the sort of pros and cons of colonialism, and his conclusion was that colonialism, if you add it all up, was a net benefit, right? Yep. And of course, this just threw the SJWs into an absolute fucking spasm, as you would imagine. And but again, the publication, now it was a proper peer-reviewed journal, they got death threats to retract the paper. So, even if this guy was wrong, he may well have been wrong. He may well have, maybe the net benefits of colonialism aren't, maybe it's not a net benefit. I would hazard a guess to say that it probably is, but I'm not an expert. If you think about all the civilizations and countries in the world that, if they weren't touched by European civilization, where would they be, even withstanding all the death and destruction? But I mean, imagine that we're in an environment now. This is a book burning type of environment where you can't publish a paper without fear of getting death threats. And the worst part is that the journal backed down. That's the worst part of it. They backed down.
Yeah, they're constantly backing down. People that come out and say something of what they really think, and next few days later, there they are on TV apologising. I really regret what I said before. I need to get more educated on diversity. In other words, code speak for anti-whiteism. They're constantly apologising.
I think BOD and I had a conversation about this before. This concept of, in the 90s, or it may have been me and Hagbard Celine, in the 90s, there was a movement in the United States for certain African Americans to go back to Africa. They're going to go back to their roots, going to go back to where they live. And they lasted like a couple of months because they couldn't handle it. Now, of course, it would be unfair to say slavery and all that was worth it so you can live in a Western world today. But you can't ignore that fact that if you ask, I'd say the vast majority of African Americans would not want to live in Africa, in any country of Africa today than the United States. But you will never hear that part acknowledged.
Yeah, that's actually what irritates. Oh, go ahead, Gary.
Sorry, go on. No, go on.
I was going to say that's what actually irritates me about the overuse of privilege when it's talking about whites being privileged or men being privileged or whatever. It's like, well, I hear sub-Saharan Africa is wonderful this time of year. If you want to go on vacation, if you want to go over check out India, that'd be fun. Or if you want to go to China or Taiwan and work in a sweatshop for a while, you can really see what it's like to not have privilege. It's like by Western people in general are far more privileged than a large chunk of the rest of the world.
Yeah. Well, I saw some stats the other day. There's a great website called Our World in Data, and I think if you earn over $16,000 a year, you're in the top 10% of income earners in the world. Mm-hmm. Right? If you earn over 16 grand. Yeah. In Australia, you can earn something like 25,000 American dollars a year on welfare.
Oh wow.
Sorry, not welfare. Sorry. Minimum wage in Australia is $672 a week. So it's about $34,000. a year.
And
That's
you can still
minimum
get
wage.
34,000 Aussie dollars is,
for some levels of work here, you still get part benefit.
yep,
Oh, wow.
$34,000. That's Australian dollars. So we're talking maybe, take a quarter off that. You're talking 25 American, 26
still, though,
maybe.
I know people have been in the workforce 10 years that barely clear that.
Mm. Yeah. Yep.
But commodities
I know
are a lot
YouTubers that
cheaper
barely
in
clear that.
America. I mean, for example, how much is it, just to use it as an example, how much is a packet of cigarettes in the US?
Depending on what the tax rate is, you're paying anywhere for a name brand, anywhere from $5 to $8.
$5 to $8 for how many cigarettes in a packet?
20.
20. All right. Here you buy a packet of 20 cigarettes, costs you probably around $26.
Whoa.
So what I'm saying there's an example of how the American wage buys, you get a lot more bang for your buck.
Technology products too. I mean, the fucking deals you guys get on technology products, you'd be horrified what you'd have to pay for an iPad or something here. It's just ridiculous. You're talking, double the price in Australian dollars. So add 50% to the American price at least on technology products.
I'm just horrified at your internet.
Yeah, I saw BOD, you put up a thing where on Twitter one day where you tested your internet speed, right? Now, I get pretty fast speed. They told me I can get up to 24 a second or something like that. You said, oh yeah, this is about average 115. Right?
Yeah.
That's how fucking slow it is in Australia.
I tell you, in Japan in 2003, I got faster speeds than I get now, and I'm on the NBN.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Is that because of regulatory stuff, or what's the reason for that?
I mean, the NBN, which is the National Broadband Network, is a government. It's a government venture, and it's just been completely mismanaged by both sides of politics for a decade, and it's costly. They cut corners, and the thing is, we're supposed to. I'm actually for upgrading, having a great broadband network, but at the end of the day, when they're done, we're still going to be like 50th in the world for speeds, and it's fucking atrocious. And we would have spent double what we intended to spend. There's a story out the other day that there's a certain municipality, and I think it was in Queensland somewhere, who, because they are not going to wait, they can't be bothered waiting for the NBN. They're actually getting a private company to do it, and the speeds are going to be something like 3 or 4 times faster.
Apparently, I read a thing where the infrastructure's there, but apparently they're not offering Australians the greatest speeds too, and it's something to do with keeping the price down. But I have a lot of trouble understanding how an infrastructure that's already there to be able to handle the larger speeds actually becomes less costly by slowing down the speeds. But again, telecommunications.
Well, you know what they. The fiber to the node, fiber to the home problem, where so what they did, instead of running fiber into your house, like when I got cable, optical fiber into my house in Japan, they came around and they ran a cable from the electricity wires or the telecommunication wires straight into the house, into the wall, right? Yep. In Australia, what they've done is they've got these nodes on the street so they run the fiber optic cable to the node, and then they run into your house via a copper wire. That's not all houses. Some houses do get the fiber straight into their home, but this fiber to the node shit. So basically, you got the fiber optic cable running to a box out on the street, and then they're running it into your house through the old copper wire system. So that's there.
My understanding is that's not how it was done here. Like when I got set up for NBN, the NBN box is actually inside my house.
Well, there you go. So see, some of them were done like that, but a lot of them were done in this fiber to the node, and that's what Turnbull did, by the way, to cut costs. That was part of the reasoning, to cut costs, because running fiber into every single house would have been too expensive.
Hmm. We don't have fiber in our houses here either.
I guess it depends where you live.
What? Mm. Yeah. And then there's there's developments now about having just I don't know, what is it, satellite controlled Wi-Fi that'll just cover everywhere and be 10 times as fast. I mean, who the fuck knows? All this infrastructure is going to be just old and out of date by the time they're finished.
Yep, for sure. But I think that sort of started to become really apparent from the middle of the 20th century onwards. Hey, that just about everything would pretty much superseded
Moore's
by
law.
the time it's a year old, because the R&D is just coming through behind it for new things all the time.
Yeah.
There was I think I'm having trouble thinking of it now, but getting back to the I know I was sort of switching subjects a bit, but getting back to the colonialism things that you were saying about before and the benefits. And a point I sort of wanted to add to that was, when weighing up with all the benefits, is also that the people of the time that did what they didn't necessarily act in inherently evil ways. That they actually genuinely believed that they were bringing forward progress and good ideas, and sometimes they might have people that wanted to exploit and could do so without the gaze of the modern day media that we have now, could get away with it. They may have partaken in some certain evil activities, but I think the concept of trying to bring civilization and forward progress to the uncivilized world wasn't necessarily an evil one, or one that's rooted in a sense of or a deep manifest sense of superiority. We believed that we had better technologies, better ways of feeding people and feeding ourselves. What are you meant to think when you go into the jungle and they're fucking banging the rocks together? And you've got the printing press and the automobile and the artillery and whatever it is that a history of science books and literature and all of those things, and you go into the jungle and, like I said, they're banging the rocks together. What are you supposed to do?
But did you see the other day? It's fucking fantastic. I know she's a bit of a scatterbrain, Camille Paglia, and she came out.
Yeah,
and
I quite like her. I like her.
I like it too, because she just says it as it is. She said this thing about feminism, and I played it in one of my videos about how mediocre people are attracted to these kinds of ideologies. And she said that when they formed women's studies back in the 70s, it was all very progressive. It was like, oh, you're a woman, let's get you. You can be in women's studies programs. And so what they did is they looked around for sort of all these untapped and undiscovered women geniuses. And she said, and they didn't find any because there aren't any, And her whole point was, so what they did, instead of embracing sort of the male geniuses of the past, the Michelangelos and all these kinds of people through the past, is that they went off in this direction of women's ways of knowing, and dumping everything that's white and male into the patriarchy, therefore it's oppressive. And she just came out and said, look, the reason why these people did it is because they are mediocre. They've been looking for female geniuses for years. They can't find any because there aren't any. And her point is, so what? What you do is you assimilate the genius of the past, and, going forward, then you get female geniuses of the future because they've studied the genius of the past. But no, we're going to go off and find out female ways of knowing, as if that's actually a thing.
Yeah, that way we can make dumb things genius.
Yeah, exactly. Mediocre things, Look, a woman did a mundane task. Fucking amazing.
But there's just so many ideas out there now that are just like, you just look at it, you go, I mean, I've been doing these videos recently on the Belgian school pamphlets handing out sex education to 7-year-olds, and some people have been losing their shit thinking, that I'm down on sex education for kids. I just think it should be an appropriate age, and that 7 isn't it, but it's that, it's a really good idea to teach kids. No, it's not. It's a fucking bad idea. It's a stupid idea. And this glorification and just pushing through of stupid ideas and people completely arguing that it's a good idea when you can put up so many proper arguments for why it's not.
Yeah, it's like everybody's viewpoint's supposed to be valid and respected. It's like, well, no, some ideas are just bad and dumb.
Yeah, but it's the promotion. I mean, what he was sort of talking about is changing the ideas, taking the good ideas from the past and going, well, you know, we've got to change things if we're going to progress. But why try and fix the things that aren't broken? You know, we arrived at that thing because it works and it's a good idea. But so now they have to go, well, you know, we can't be really smart or geniuses. We've got to come up with these dumb ideas and just call them genius.
Yeah, and a lot of it's based on resentment. I mean, the fact is, look at all these movements in various colleges all around the world to stop reading dead white men and things like that. The fact is, because they are the most relevant people. If you want to understand history, science, these are the people you need to read. And it's resentment based. They can't actually handle the fact that most progress through civilization, and yes, women were excluded. You don't have to deny that. Women were excluded for the most part. So, of course, it was mainly white men. But they'll just
blacks too, because they were the forefront of the civilization at that time. But now we've got emancipation and we've got equal opportunity for women and blacks and everyone else. History should show that, you know, that these ideas, these good ideas can come forward no matter who they're written by. And women and blacks won't be excluded from being remembered in history as people that came up with brilliant ideas in next century, because they've got the opportunity to do that now.
But that's where postmodernism sort of kicks into its own, doesn't it? That's why it's the useful tool of the idiot, because everything is relative in postmodernism. There is no genius. Everything's a power game. Words are just a power game between competing factions. So there is no... and you can throw out meritocracy, because meritocracy doesn't mean anything. Again, it's just a power struggle. And therefore you can institute things like hiring people based on diversity, skin color, gender, because meritocracy is meaningless in the postmodernist world.
Well, meritocracy is discriminatory against idiots, isn't it?
It's very revealing.
Yeah, it tends to do that, doesn't it? You know, you can't run the race, you can't succeed as well as somebody else can, and all of a sudden you're a fucking victim. You know, you're a victim of the fact that they're good at something.
Exactly. Yeah. Everyone gets a winner. I mean, George Carlin was talking about this 20 years ago, wasn't it? You're the last winner. You know, you're not a loser. You're the last winner.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's a really good way to put it as well. The last winner. Yeah. Do you guys have that sort of thing? Do you guys have a slimming down fat show in America, The Biggest Loser? You guys must have that over there as well, yeah?
Yeah, I don't watch much television like that, but I'm aware that at least there was a show like that. I don't know if it's still allowed anymore, but there was.
Yeah, it was only the title that got me thinking about. I wasn't necessarily trying to get onto fatism or fat shaming or anything.
I mean, I really I want those people to lose weight. You know, whenever I see those shows, I mean, I don't watch those shows, but I want people to lose weight in those shows. I don't want them to be fat pigs, because because their life.
They won't admit that they want to lose weight, so they just go for the lazy fucking. I'm a victim of fucking anti-fat discrimination instead.
Yeah, that's what annoys me, because you know very well that these people's lives would be, you know, immeasurably better if they dropped 50, 100 pounds, whatever it is they need to drop. And you really root for them. But the moment you suggest that perhaps your life would be better if you weren't an absolute pig, you're a horrible person. Even though we can demonstrate,
it's big bones, it's genetic, have a look at the fucking Auschwitz and tell me how many fat fucking emaciated Jews you see, right, because of all the overeating that they were doing. You know, it's fucking, it's not there. It's not there. They're all fucking wasted away to nothing, because they didn't get enough fucking food. The fact is, you're overweight. Look, there's going to be some genetic component there that, you know, you're more likely to get fat. But, you know, I see plenty too. I saw some just yesterday afternoon. the fat parents walking around with the perfectly fucking skinny, normal-looking kids, right? You could tell, and it's like you could tell who does all the fucking overindulgence and all the overeating in your house. You know, the kids get fucked. Already eaten it.
I love the whole. I love what it's labeled itself, fat acceptance, and I'm always like, yeah, I accept that you're fat. I accept it. I mean, I have no problem with accepting that you're a fat pig. Yeah, I mean, it's manifestly obvious, and I accept that you're fat. But what they're really saying is to accept that I'm fat. But not only that, you also have to find me attractive, and you can't discriminate against me on the basis, in terms of looks. Like, I'm a fat woman, and I should be just as attractive as any other woman. My fatness shouldn't get in the way. That's what they really want to say. Yeah. They really want to say that.
But your fatness really gets in the way. It actually, more than anything else, your fatness gets in the way because it physically gets in the way.
Yeah. Well, it upsets me. It's like try to paint it that like fat can be healthy also. And it's like, no, it's not. Absolutely not. No doctor is going to say that except if he's worried about getting sued.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, there's two. I mean, if you're getting a little bit old and you smoke and you're overweight, those are the two things that a doctor will tell you that can improve your health immediately. Stop smoking and lose some weight. That is the universal advice from any doctor that you'll get in your life. Stop smoking, lose some weight. That's it. Yep. Those are two of the best things you can do for yourself.
Because they're the two biggest killers. And that's one of the things I found when I was trying to look at the ABS stats on, because you hear that claim in Australia from the feminists, domestic violence is the #1 killer of women in this country. Well, actually, no, it doesn't even fucking rank in the top 20.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, it's just
and it is. What kills women is fucking coronary heart disease. Breast cancer comes further down the list. Right? Yeah. But it's things to do with unhealthy lifestyles that actually kill women. Certain types of cancers, cardiovascular heart disease, all fucking obesity related stuff.
But I mean, the reality is, us three here today, two of us will probably develop cancer, or at least one, and possibly two of us. I mean, the statistics are, it doesn't matter how old you are and how healthy you are, or it does matter to some extent how healthy you are, but about 1 in 2 men will get a cancer by the time they're 80 years of age if they're still alive, and 1 in 3 women will get a cancer of some kind.
And I smoke, so just for the viewers, he's talking.
So it's going to be Gaz.
It's going to be me, and plus I'm the oldest as well, so I'm going to fucking cark off. There's other guys making videos, and I'll be.
Such an extraordinary claim to say. I mean, we know in Australia about 1 woman a week is killed by a partner. About 1 woman a week. That's 52 women a year. And the idea, just anyone thinking out loud would have to know that this could not rank anywhere near one of the biggest killers of women at all. Yeah, it's absurd.
In a population, but also too, fucking destroy the joint. They make a whole point about counting them, and they, they'll have figures like 70 a year, 80 a year or something for the last couple of years. In a population of 25 million people.
Yeah, and they're lying. So what they're doing, what Destroy the Joint do, is they will include a mother who kills her own daughter, and then they'll count that as violence against women.
Yeah, and a woman killing another woman over a bloke will be in as a woman killed. Right?
Yep. Yeah, and that's what they do. Because what's her name did a really good video on that. She actually found that almost half of what they say are violence against women deaths are just made up bullshit, reinterpreted. They count cases where they don't even have a cause of death, but a woman is dead. It's just absurd stuff.
Yeah, and I was reading, I forget what it was, a New South Wales State Coroner's report from, I think it was from 2013, and they actually had some of the case studies of the domestic violence deaths, and yes, the higher proportion of them were women. But what was the common factor throughout all these deaths was generally drug abuse and alcohol, and it was partaken in, because water finds its own level, by both the partners. You know, it was the woman that became victim of the domestic violence death was just a bigger fucking druggo as the bloke that killed her. They were fucking in it together, and you could read between the lines. A lot of it was, you know, it would be her provoking him and starting the fight because she was fucking pissed and going off about something, and he'd give her a good fucking hammering. Because he just couldn't fucking take it anymore. That's not to excuse him doing it, because, you know, man can always just fucking drive off. His clothes might not be still in one piece if he returns, but at least he can always just drive off.
And that speaks to this massive lie, which is the line being pushed by feminists now in Australia, that domestic violence is due to gender inequality. And this is just a campaign to get more women into jobs and boardrooms and politics. It's to get more middle-class feminists like themselves into jobs. That's what it is. Gender inequality is the cause of domestic violence. And if you have a look at, as Gary said, I mean, have a look at the worst kinds of domestic violence. Where does it occur? It occurs in Indigenous communities, poor, welfare-dependent communities in Western Sydney. What do they have? Generational welfare dependency, drug and alcohol dependency, high rates of unemployment. They're the factors. Those are the factors that drive domestic violence, not fucking gender inequality.
Yeah. And when you put, and you can see that plainly when you put domestic violence statistics onto a map. It just, there it is. It's in plain fucking black and white. That it's in Indigenous communities and socio-economically depressed areas is where the prevalence is, and that's not, you know, and of course, just because you can pull one fucking example that happened on the North Shore out of your fucking ass doesn't mean that's you know.
I mean, how about this? Just how about, I mean, the whole campaign has been that domestic violence is widespread across community. It affects everyone. I mean, it's just a demonstrable lie on every single level. I likens domestic violence, the spread of it, like rainfall. You know, in Tibooburra in northern, get 3,000 millimetres a year, and there are other parts in Australia where you get zero rainfall. In, you know, large parts of Australia you get zero rainfall. That's what domestic violence is like. It's really concentrated in certain areas, and in some areas it's, you know, virtually non-existent. And all the statistics point that out. But we have a narrative in Australia, and you've got to hand it to feminists. They have done this. They have convinced most people this is the case, to the point where, you know, you have organisations going into schools, making boys stand up in class and pledge that they'll respect women more, because it's a thing that's inherent to men. You know, it's part of toxic masculinity. It's fucking disgraceful.
And on the subject of all men being evil, you and I discussed a couple of days ago, I pointed out to you how the ICMI 18 conference that was contracted to take place at Birmingham Football Club, Mike Buchanan announced that the club's pulled out because misogyny, evil white man. Yeah. It's just fucking...
Yeah, very predictable.
Yeah, but it's just so fucking wrong. As guys, you and I attended the one here in Australia, and that's where we met in person. And the fact that conference, the whereabouts had to be a tightly guarded secret. Yeah, that the men would just want to get together and talk, you know, men's stuff, and a lot of the stuff was about, you know, male circumcision and just
suicide
issues that affect men, male suicide, and that it would just be vilified and demonized completely. And what really pisses me off about that was, I don't know if you remember this, Indy, but when Augusto Zimmerman was up talking about some of the cases that he's come across in the court of Western Australia, there was a bloke sitting fucking half a dozen seats away from me that was crying, that started crying when hearing about, you know, Zimmerman telling stories about men that had fucking lost everything, and their wife had basically taken their house, their kids, everything, just on this false fucking accusation.
Yep.
And that bloke's fucking crying, and there's other blokes putting their hands on his shoulder going, comforting him, going, "Yeah, no, it's all right, mate. You know, just settle down. Everything's cool." Most of the time, most of the people I spoke to there were men that had been fucked over by child support and the family court system. That was the common thread throughout the place. Yeah. And yet you've got this fuckwit from the British media portraying the whole thing of the controversial men's things, and they're all fucking misogyny, and Birmingham football ground, you know, we pride ourselves on fucking diversity. You know, so we don't want one of these fucking men's hates movements on it. Fuck off.
Yeah.
Fuck off. You know.
The only thing I would say, I would never defend Birmingham's decision. They're just a bunch of cowards. But Mike does go out of his way to offend people. I mean, he said something like, "It's only ugly women that complain of sexual harassment." You know,
Yes.
and he's done this stupid thing where he invokes his own anecdotal evidence to say that sexual harassment doesn't happen because for 30 years I've never seen any of it. Like, I mean, this is the point I have. I like hearing anecdotes and I like stories, but please don't use your anecdotes to debunk statistics, you know, because it's dumb. It doesn't work. You know,
it's not true. It's not true to say that only attractive women are subject to sexual harassment, and that in some form. That it can happen to lots of women. I mean, attractive women might get sexual harassment more, but it's not true to say that it only happens to attractive women. It's, you know, it's not true.
He went as far as to say, I think, some unattractive women politicians, their claims aren't credible. Perhaps they're fantasizing. You know,
I think he was having a stab at Jess Phillips there without actually saying the name.
Yeah. I mean, he doesn't. I mean, I don't blame him for saying that, because worse comes from the other side. But it's you're not helping your cause. You know, I don't think.
Yeah, it's probably not. What's an analogy to use? If you want to put out a petrol fire, throwing some more petrol on it's probably not the way to do it.
Yeah.
You know.
But it's not surprising. Isn't Birmingham the first place that brought in that misogyny as a hate crime law? Wasn't that? Remember that was cunt.
No, that was in Nottinghamshire. I'm not. Yeah, I'm not familiar with British geography and all of that. I haven't been there. The Birmingham thing was because I think Mike is a member and a fan of the football club. And so he thought it'd be a good place to hold it, good function room. You know, bring some blokes into the club and all of that. But no, you know, I find it interesting too. You know, his party, the name of his party, Justice for Men and Boys and the Women That Love Them. So, you know, there's a definite attempt there to have women included in the. And I support Mike on the things that he says about, you know, women in business, and, you know, when he goes up against feminists on British TV, I think he's really factual and pretty spot on, and represents men in a really great way. I do agree with what you say about saying some things that either aren't true or things that aren't going to make the situation better. I can't think of too many examples, but
the problem with the whole, you know, Me Too movement at the moment, this Me Too, I've been sexually harassed too, is that you're going to lump in people who actually have been raped with people who got wolf whistled at, and you're going to claim it's all one big oppression pot, and it just diminishes everything, because no one's going to listen at that point. Oh yeah, what happened? Yeah, somebody said, I like your outfit today too, and you're part of the Me Too movement. You know, it's ridiculous, and it's all unsubstantiated nonsense. I did like a 3-minute parody video on this Me Too thing where I pretended to sexually assault myself because I work at home.
I did watch that. I was going to actually say at the beginning of this stream, it's nice to see you wearing pants today. Or are you? Because we haven't seen the bottom half of it.
Well, I think I'll just leave that to people's imagination.
That's it. But go on, you were saying about in making that video, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, just making the point that you know, it just becomes personal Rorschach test, and I'm going to be a misogynist here and say I think there's something about female nature that they just love to pile on a victim narrative, don't they? It's just something inherent to women that, you know, they'll just, oh yeah, me too. Oh yes, it happened to me. And all of a sudden they're talking about how oppressed they are while they're sipping lattes at some inner city cafe while their husbands are at work slaving away. You know, it's that kind of just disconnect from reality. You want to lump yourself in from a woman who actually was brutally raped, you know, because someone made a compliment or held a door open for you?
I'm not sure if I've told you before. I was raped by a woman in my early 20s, basically going out, getting pissed, you know, and it was these group of sisters, and I was actually living in the house with them. So it was actually one of my housemates, and she was the least attractive one. And basically, she had trouble pulling a boyfriend because she was basically pretty ugly, and we. You know, we were completely shit-faced drunk. I don't know how drunk she was because I can't speak for that, but I was fucking blind as. And about 4 a.m. after coming home from the club, passing out, and she's just basically come into my room and started trying to have sex with me and really taking advantage of the fact that she knew that I was really pissed. And one of my only recollections of it is me going, no, 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 no. So I recall distinctly saying, no, 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 right? And what she did was she basically used the fact that I was incapable of physically resisting because I was so drunk to fucking tear my pants off and get on top of me and start fucking, which I couldn't really do much of anything, right? Because I was so fucking drunk. Right, and so I suppose now the follow-up to being raped, and there must be some, I don't know, it's not Stockholm syndrome because that's being a captive, but I actually ended up fucking her the next weekend just to prove that even though she was ugly.
There you go. To prove that you weren't raped, to prove to yourself. See?
Well, that I wasn't fucking incapable of having sex in actuality. Yeah, because I was so fucking drunk, you know. But
let me give you.
It would never have happened if she didn't fucking sexually assault me, basically.
Yeah, I'll give you my. So I don't know if I've talked about this online before. Maybe I have, but the only time I was ever involved in sexual harassment at work in 20 odd years of working in offices was my first ever job out of university, and I worked in an accounting department of like 20 women and 3 men. And the other 2 men were managers. So I was in this sort of department, it's one of those cubicles everywhere, open plan office, you know, everybody can see everybody. And I had this immediate supervisor who was unbelievably ugly. And she was basically training me, and she'd come over behind my desk and stand behind me, and she'd put her arm on my shoulder, and she'd always be touching me, you know, like this. And it was, and I remember feeling like, you know, I wasn't happy about it, but I didn't complain about it. It wasn't a big deal, right? Because it was an open plan office. Everybody could see you. Anyway, one of the other women dobbed her in for doing it. I didn't say a word. So I get called into the manager's office, and he's all very, I mean, this is the mid-90s, right? And he's all very, oh, how do you feel about your supervisor? And I'm like, oh, she's fine. Because the other thing about her, she knew her job. She knew exactly what she was doing. I was getting good training. So I was like, oh, yeah, she's fine. She's good. I'm getting good training. He's like, oh, yeah, but what do you feel about her? And it was all very coy. And then finally comes out. I go, oh, yeah, look, yeah, I guess I prefer that she didn't do that. So she got in trouble. She got a reprimand, and then she would come over behind me when she was, and she would do this. She would stand like this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
basically making out like you've caused the problem. You know, that's why I never wanted to get into all of that shit at work, because making out that you know you're causing the problem.
Yeah,
but you didn't make the complaint.
Well, actually, I think she did that because the boss, who was at the end of the office, it was a glass office and cubicles, and everyone could see everyone. So she was kind of saying, look, I'm not touching him. I'm not touching him, you know. And it is part of that, yeah. Like, and I remember saying to her, I was like, you know, I didn't complain about this. It wasn't me that complained about it, but I actually don't like being touched by just random people in the workplace, especially as someone as troll-ugly as you. But
you will love that.
Well, I didn't say that bit, but I did say, I didn't. And anyway, but I left that job after 8 months anyway, so it wasn't a big deal. But that's the only.
Just before the baby came along.
Yeah, that's the only incidents that I know of that any office that I've worked in of sexual harassment, and that's the one that involved me. But I actually don't know of any other incidents in an office environment that I worked in of sexual harassment. I actually don't know of one.
I've never seen it at all, hardly that I can think of any form of sexual harassment going on at work in any job that I've been in.
I've only seen it. I've seen it twice, and once it happened to me, and once I saw it happen to a young lady that I worked with. And when it happened to the young lady I worked with, they were talking. She was talking with an older gentleman I worked with. They were just talking about playing instruments or something, and he goes, "Oh, what instrument do you play? And don't tell me your boyfriend's skin flute." And I'm like, yeah. And I kind of looked at him. I'm like, really? Did you just say that? You should know in current times that this is not acceptable.
That reminds me of my Elton John joke that I know, which was, Elton John, he's really good on the piano, but he sucks on the organ.
So that was a little messed up. And then I got actually sexually assaulted myself when I worked at a convenience store when I was like 20 years old. Me and my wife had been together since we were teenagers, and she had made it clear to me that she was interested, and I'd made it very, very clear that I was not. And then one day when I was stocking a cooler, she followed me into the cooler and decided to corner me and try to kiss me and grab my junk. And this was definitely not something I wanted. But, yet I didn't report it or anything. But yet if I was a man and I had done that, good chance I could have gone to jail.
Yeah. I got a lot of that in my band days. Like when I was playing in the band, the girls all the time approaching, "Can I buy you a drink?" and trying to grab you and grabbing you and thinking that they can do whatever they want, I mean, this is back years ago when I was young and beautiful, at least last Thursday or Wednesday or something. But plenty of instances of sexual harassment for me in that thing. But I never took it as sexual harassment. I get this thing. Isn't this something you can deal with? I always knew how to deal with it.
Yeah. Well, I think that was the point of that British MP's. Have you heard this one where the British MP, he's now resigned, he was a minister, and he put his hand on some radio announcer's knee a few times, and she said to him, "If you do that again, I'll punch you in the face." And she thought it was half funny, the whole incident. And basically she dealt with it, she dealt with it. He
didn't do it again, did he?
Yeah, he didn't. And this is kind of the point, isn't it? It's like we're teaching women. I mean, the guy shouldn't do that, but we're teaching women that, every time some slight infraction happens, reach for an authority figure to do something about it, to punish this man, even if he didn't mean. Like, did you see that Red Pill episode of Cassie Jays about the guy that worked at Hewlett Packard? Fucking fascinating. So he's a tech engineer at Hewlett Packard. And he's in a conversation with a girl in marketing, and he's talking about some technical IT thing, right? And she's working in marketing. So he interrupts himself halfway through his explanation of what he's talking about, because he says, "Oh, you work in marketing, right?" And so she took that to HR because he had assumed that she was not an IT professional, which she was. It turns out she was an IT professional working in the marketing department. So that went on his permanent record at Hewlett Packard. It came up in his performance review. He challenged it. It went up higher, and someone said, "No, it's what you did was wrong." It was basically a microaggression. And he took it even higher. He took it 3 levels, and they all said no. And all 3 levels, all of the people that reviewed it were all women in that organization. And that's ultimately one of the reasons he left. But I mean, the key point here is that his intention was absolutely genuine. He didn't want to be explaining a technical thing, not because she was a woman, but because that she wouldn't understand it because she wasn't in a technical role. He was trying to clarify what her job was, not whether she was a woman. He didn't assume she was a marketing professional because she was a woman. He assumed she was a marketing professional because she was working in the fucking marketing department. And yet this was, you know, he presumed some kind of gender stereotype. Anyway, he fucked off and he got a better job anyway somewhere else. But that just goes to show you, because sometimes you think, oh, might be all a bit overplayed, but that shit is really happening. Silicon Valley must be the most politically correct fucking place on the planet.
See, maybe he should have just resorted to first, just to clarify things, to asking the question, yeah, you're a woman, aren't you? and see how that would have gone down.
Yeah, well, you can't even assume that these days, can you?
Please allow me to mansplain.
Well, I think you can. I think you can assume it, mate, because it's pretty fucking evident. I think, unless you, I mean, I think Blair White might have been the only person that ever I saw the first time on video and didn't think that it wasn't a woman.
Right.
Likewise.
Well, yeah, when she did her first couple of videos, I was watching those and I just watched them. I didn't realise that Blair White was a transsexual person. I just went, oh, this is a woman talking about what she's learning in her feminist classes.
I think you can tell when they take off their makeup. You know, at the moment, I mean, see you without makeup on. It's the same with, I lived in Thailand for about 2 years, and there's, you know, I mean, transgender has been, gatois as they're called over there, has been just, you know, they've been genuinely accepted for decades over in Thailand. It's just commonplace to see them. The moment you see them out of their makeup, I mean, it's just, you're just like, oh, Jesus fucking Christ, you know, it's a shocker.
Yeah. Well, I've never seen transgender person once, except for Blair White, that I didn't look and go, oh yeah, that's a bloke in fucking lipstick and a dress, and that, because that's all they look like to me. You know, nothing against them. Again, I say in my videos, you know, I still would speak to them and respect them as people, and in every other regard. You know, but I draw the line at me having to address you as a woman when I can plainly see that you're not, and that gets to the whole thing. I can't see them as anything else than a man with fucking makeup and a dress on.
Yeah, I don't know. Actually, I was at a conference 3 weeks ago in Brisbane, this Liberty conference, Liberty Fest it was called, and that's where I met Anthony Dillon, and I was able to get an interview out of him later on. But I met a transgender woman, and he was, or she was, dressed in a dress, like in a girls' school uniform, and I stood there talking to her for, I don't know, 30 minutes, 45 minutes. There was three of us. And, you know, it didn't come up. It was perfectly fine. They were talking about normal, everyday things. There's absolutely nothing wrong with them. I mean, the only problem I have is when, you know, you have that, what's that fucking idiot's name? Dennis Riley? Riley Dennis, right?
Yeah, Riley Dennis. Yeah.
Riley Dennis wants to basically say, if you're straight, a trans woman, that you're, you know, transphobic or misogynistic or something like that. The idea that, yeah, I don't want to date a biological man who thinks they're a woman. Yeah, I mean,
actually,
and that makes
on that episode. Yeah.
That's fucking stunning. Yeah, I'd actually like my females without dicks. Would that be okay? Could I have that?
Yeah. But like you know, some of the fat acceptance and fat factivists, they try to do that as well. That there's something wrong with you, or that if you don't want to have sex with fat chicks. But you know, that's again, with transgender, I say, well, to me, they don't have the necessary plumbing I'm looking for sexual activity, right?
Yeah.
Because I want my sexual partner to have a vagina.
Yeah, but even then, what do you do with someone like, now Blair White has now had the snip, right? I think had the operation.
Yeah, I think.
I remember her tweeting out things about going in for an operation and et cetera, et
She had
cetera.
some face surgery. I don't know if she
is that all?
I thought it was face surgery. I thought it was something with the nose and all of that, actually.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Oh, well, maybe, I don't know then. I don't know if she's had the snip. But, I mean, what do you do then? So let's say you get a guy, becomes a trans woman and gets the snip and gets an artificial vagina. I mean, and let's say you don't know and you end up going out with that person and you have a sexual relationship, and then they tell you after that they are actually, well, I used to be a man, but, you know, as you can see, I've got all the lady parts now. Are you now sexist if you're turned off by this new information? Does that make you a sexist?
Have you guys heard anything about when they have the transgender operation and they take certain parts of, I don't know if it was from the fucking scrotum or whatever it is that they make the vagina out of, that the transsexual vagina can then continue to grow hair on the inside because
that's not weird.
The hair could grow on the outside because have you guys any of you guys heard about that? Because
I have not, but it makes sense.
I don't know if it's a fucking some sort of myth or whether that's actually a real biological thing. I haven't looked right into it, probably because I'm a bit scared too. But
also though, this is a genuine question I have. What are the ethics of, let's say you're a trans woman and you've had all the operations, so now you've got all the female plumbing, or at least to the best of your ability. Obviously, you can't have a child, but what are the ethics on that? Should they tell you up front that they're not or they weren't born a biological woman? What do you think of the ethics of that?
No, actually I don't, because that's like sort of saying as well that are you acting unethically if you don't tell me about things from your past? And look, people, but it still comes down to the individual probably to decide whether they feel that it's unethical. You know, like. I mean, if you were lied to, for example, I had an ex-partner that I talked about sexual diseases right when we first started having sex within the first few weeks. And she basically assured me that she didn't have any. And it was only later on when we were going through an episode where she was refusing to have sex with me that she ended up having to admit to me that she actually had herpes. And that was why she was not having sex with me at that time, because she didn't want to give it to me. And my issue wasn't that she had the sexual thing. It was that she told me that she didn't at the beginning.
Yeah.
And I can see why she did it, because she's right in that I probably would have said, oh, look, no, so long and thanks for all the fish. But yeah, you see what I mean? Like it's a pretty grey area. I can understand why somebody wouldn't want to come out and say, I used to be a man and now I'm still a man.
Well, the argument
is passing pretty well at that point.
Yeah, the argument is, I suppose, if you passed as a woman, and you got some guy to go out you and he's completely happy with you, this new information.
What difference does it make?
Yeah, this new information shouldn't change his mind. Right?
It'd be hard. It'd probably something I couldn't get my head around because, I've got that. To me, a woman is so much more. They're not just their tits. They're not just their vagina. There's something. Whilst women can be incredibly frustrating and not like men, there's something really complimentary about the fact that they're not. And and you just don't want to live in an echo chamber of sentiments and ideas about things. Women, even if it's oppositional to you, can give you really interesting perspective on. That can be frustrating if you're having an argument and they're getting emotional and you're trying to keep it really rational and it's not working. But anyway, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting one. But I just think that, because I think that situation is probably going to become more prevalent, right? If you're going to have more people being transvestites, you're going to have more of these situations where, a trans woman, and especially you don't even have to pass as that good looking if you meet in a nightclub out and people are drunk and the ugly lights are on. I mean, you don't even have to, in that situation, you don't even have to. So there'll be, there's bound to be more situations of people waking up in the morning next to somebody and then they find out,
I think you've just. I think you've inspired me to come up with a new device. I could invent the silly. I could call it the silly test. It's actually short newspeak for silicon tester. Whatever. See how much silicon's in their body.
Well, people talk about gaydar. Maybe it's a trader. The trader.
Trendar.
Trendar.
Yeah. That's all. We'll workshop that idea. I'm sure there's millions in that one, especially if
an app. Wouldn't that be great on your phone? You could just hold it up to someone and go, yep, not a tranny. Okay, everything's fine.
Yeah, speaking of like, projects and ideas and things, before I forget, Darkness, you want to do some more songs at some stage?
Sure.
I'm sure you're going to say yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe throwing a couple of my originals at you, actually just like straight up songs that I think again would really suit your voice.
No, that'd be awesome. I enjoyed doing the parody. Doing a serious song would be awesome as well. I just finished one. In fact, I don't know if you saw me post it on my channel, but it was a rework I did of one I wrote in 2008 for my brother. But I reworked it with an electric guitar and actually turned out pretty good.
I saw you post it, but I've been working the last couple of days and I hadn't had a chance to watch it yet. but I will go and have a look at it. I'm not sure if you know, speaking about Mike Buchanan actually took, he really liked it. He must be perhaps an Oasis fan that really enjoyed the piss take. And he shared it around on his Justice for Boys and Men.
Nice.
And a couple of other people have basically taken it and said they posted it around places and stuff as well. Did you see that, Indy, that version of
No, haven't seen it.
That we did? Oh, mate, you got to go and have a look. You know the Oasis song Wonderwall? Yeah?
Yeah.
It's a parody type version of that song.
Good. Is it on those channels or not?
It's on both our channels.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, we both put it up same day. Go check out his singing in it, and he's actually wearing his Independent Man cap in the film clip. Yeah.
Oh, good one. Free advertising. Well done, son.
Yeah, and with a Bearing t-shirt. but the setting worked out well because I suggested, I could see sitting in a lounge chair, nice armchair and a fireplace and things, and he's got a relative that it was your aunt or something, wasn't it, mate?
Yeah.
They got the nice house with the antique furniture and stuff, and so it's come out like pretty. Yeah, I'm pretty proud of it anyway. Pretty good looking clip.
I'll have to look at that.
Did you see the Black Sabbath cover that I did a couple of days ago? Darkness.
No, I haven't. I've been kind of up my own ass the last couple of days. I need to get to watching some videos.
I mean, it was another one I was almost thinking about asking you if you wanted to do the vocals, but there's a guy I used to play in a band with who's sung on a few of my tracks, and he's got the long sort of hair and stuff, and I thought I could dress him up as Ozzy Osbourne. That's nice. AUSSIE, AUSBORN for anyone that. And the first song off Black Sabbath's classic album Paranoid, War Pigs, we did a version of that, War Piglets.
Oh no, I saw that come over on my feed.
Yeah, go check that out. It's pretty I'm pretty proud of that one as well. It's pretty authentic to the original as far as like the music and the playing. I spent a bit of time working on the solo, trying to get it down note for note, which is always a challenge, especially if it's fast playing. You got to there's a lot to try and emulate there.
Yeah, that's the thing. Everybody was complimentary in our collaboration. I'm like, all I did was saying Gary did all the work.
No, but what you did was you got a really nice, clean, good sounding vocal take where you're, no singer is 100% spot on. So the fact that you got your vocals probably 70% pretty accurate. The little bits that require a little bit of auto tuning, which in the case of your voice, it's not really auto tuning your voice; it's just polishing, because it's not changing it that much, And the rest of it's like just mixing and you got the filming done and you did everything and really you conveyed the idea that I was trying to express to you when I was talking to you about doing the clip. So there's your contribution to it's a lot bigger than you kind of modestly make out. So
I appreciate that.
No worries. And it was good fun and turned out really well.
Yeah, I was really pleased with how many people said they wanted to make it their ringtone or that they said they watched it multiple times.
Yeah. So, Indy, that's something you got to go do, man. You got to go check out those 2 clips, because the one that he and I did together, it's it's pretty Oasis sounding,
and it's just hilarious too.
I will do that, but I don't know about you guys, but if you have a look at the subscriptions you have in YouTube, I mean, how many people do you actually watch anymore? I mean, I've watched fuck all, to be honest. It's just too busy trying to do your own videos, and I get notifications, and then, if for some reason, as happens all the fucking time, notifications just stop coming.
Yeah.
I never go back and get them, and then all of a sudden you go, oh, I wonder why Gary hasn't done a video in a month. And you go over to his channel, and he's done fucking 20, but you didn't get any notifications.
Yeah,
and you don't,
yeah,
and you don't, and then you don't go back and watch all 20 of them.
Yeah, like what I'll do is I'll watch every video you make for a couple of weeks, and then for a couple of weeks I might only watch 1 or 2 and miss a few, and then because I've been, and then I might watch No Bullshits videos for a couple of weeks, and then I might watch Beware of Darkness videos for a couple of weeks, and then go back and watch a couple that I hadn't seen. Every now and then I'll go through and pull out some older video that's not necessarily on my recommendation thing. I'll just have a look down their list and go, oh yeah, that looks interesting, blah, 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 blah. So I tend to go through little phases of either looking at different content creators at different times, or even phases of not watching much of other people's content, either because I'm busy, like you said, doing my own, or working, or doing other life things, family shit. And then other times I'll go mad on watching people's videos for fucking 3 or 4 days straight and hardly make anything myself because I'm too busy sort of trying to catch up a little bit. I do tend to still watch most of Sargon's videos, and of course he's got the Thinkery channel.
How many channels has he got now? He's got more than 2, hasn't he?
Oh no, he's got 3 or 4. I think the Ve Victus one might not be called Ve Victus. One of them he changed the name, Ancient Recitations or something. He changed the name, but I've actually never really watched those channels at all anyway. I like the stuff he does on the Thinkery because it's a lot of it's off the cuff, impromptu, which I find that he's actually really good at doing.
Yeah.
And I mentioned that I was going through one where he was singing your praises, Independent Man, for your Lazy Sunday videos, which was, it was nice to hear, the big man's out there taking notice of what you do. And that is right.
I mean, it's if you watch my content, then the recommended videos that come up are going to be you, Sargon, Dave Cullen, Andy Worski. You're bound to, and so I guess I mean, people out there in the audience probably don't realise that we don't talk to each other that much, but I suspect most people know who everyone else is. Like I've never talked to Andy Worski, but I know who he is. I've never talked to a whole bunch of people that are Bunty or any of these people. Chris Reagan, I send, I've got a few tweets from him, but there's a bunch of people. We all know who each other is, but we hardly ever talk to each other, I think.
Life just gets in the way sometimes. I mean, same like with you, Gary. I watch videos in bunches sometimes. I got a new guitar, so last few weeks I've been playing my guitar a lot, not watching much of videos at all. But then I might sit down on I don't watch as much Sargon anymore as I used to. It's like I tend to watch my friends more often, so I'll watch your guys' videos and I'll binge watch, 2 or 3 weeks of your content that I didn't get to watch, and then I'll come back a couple weeks later and do the same thing all over again.
Yeah, and I tend to not just watch the guys in our, if you can call it some sort of fraternity or community, YouTube, or in the scene, as it were. Sometimes I'll, I spend a bit of time just watching Russian car crash videos, going,
that's it,
Jesus Christ, and like I don't know, just something. I actually really like Uncle Rob. I like watching him fucking blow things up. It must be like how to mix a cocktail. First, tip out the alcohol, fill it full of gasoline. Then, and everything's just fucking blowing up, which it's just something, it's mind-numbing fucking yobboism and that, but I just find it funny because it's just like easy to watch. And he keeps, he's got to slowly progress to bigger and bigger explosions. So it's getting, you know, some of them are starting to get pretty fucking risky now, I think. I wait for he's going to blow himself up at some stage, because all those experts, it doesn't matter. You know, I believe that he just makes out the yobbo thing, that he's actually got some sort of chemistry degree. He's pretty, a lot of the things he builds and all of that are actually pretty dangerous, and actually I think are scientifically planned out to be as safe as possible. But it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you know, you do that shit, eventually it's going to fucking blow you up.
Yeah, he's the Steve Irwin. He's going down the same.
Yeah, that's right. Steve Irwin could go up and fucking wrangle crocodile, tackle any creature, but eventually a fucking stingray got him. You know, and who's the other one that you know? You heard about the young kid in Brisbane, Indy, that fucking the reptile kid keeper. He's got a fucking inland taipan.
No, I haven't heard of that.
Fucking deadliest snake in the fucking world. Yeah, he's in North Lakes and that. And a couple of days ago, it bit him. And the only reason he's still alive is because his father's home. Was home and called the emergency fucking straight away. I don't know if they got the. You know, I wouldn't want someone with a fucking inland taipan living next door to me. Fuck that.
I mean, that's North Lakes is my. Yeah, I know that area pretty well. My parents used to live up there until they moved recently, but yeah.
Just so you know, Darkness, inland taipan. In Australia, they're rare. They mainly just live out in the Simpson Desert. You know, hardly anyone in Australia has ever seen one. I've only ever seen one in a zoo, right? And gone up to the glass and all of that. But one of those bite you, man, you fucking dead. 40 minutes. 40 minutes. It's done.
So you're talking like one of the most lethal snakes in the world.
We're talking one of the. I think it may be the most venomous snake in the world. And this kid's got one in his fucking house, and you got to have the correct permits and all of that. You can't just have one. So they're reptile keepers, the family. They're into it, right? But I don't see the fascination in having an animal that's that dangerous. I actually think it's irresponsible. You know, what if that snake escapes and you got fucking kids living next to, you know, a bit of fucking kid, the kid will be dead in fucking 10 minutes, 15 minutes flat.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Have you seen the loony Christian snake handlers we have here in the States?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, those people are nuts. And the dude finally got bitten and died from it, too.
And I love how they say that just demonstrates that he wasn't really committed.
Exactly.
That's what that demonstrates. It doesn't. He wasn't a true man of God. That's why he got bitten. That's fucking hell. It's brilliant.
It's like, that's my country.
You had a woman over here in WA. I don't know how recently it was, but I thought it was pretty recently. Fucking mauled to death by her own dog in a house, and the fucking relatives found her because you guys have the pit bulls over in America and they're still legal, but they're not legal here in Australia. But I think it's a certain breed of pit bulls aren't legal in Australia anymore, or you got to have a fucking permit or whatever. But done in by her own fucking bull terrier in her own home recently.
Jesus Christ!
Yeah.
Was she old or something, or just
no? I think I don't know. I don't know anything about it. Just that
perhaps she mistreated it.
Yeah, perhaps. I mean, you know, they say that even the vicious dogs, if you just raise them all happy and fucking playing like puppies and never expose them to anything, or that they won't be that way. I actually don't agree with that. I think there's an inherent attack.
Well, there's a great Bill Burr joke, I think, where he's going on about how people infantilize and anthropomorphize their pets, right, dogs and stuff, and I think he says something at some point like, if you died in your house, your dog would be eating you within 24 hours. You know, they'd be eating you for food within 24 hours because they'd be hungry.
that shits me. You know, I work with somebody that's basically got dogs and well, they're my babies. They're like family. Oh, fuck off. And men do it. It's not just women. Men do it too. Oh, he's my boy. He's my baby. You know, like, oh, no, he's not. He's a fucking dog.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
A lot of those dogs. Go ahead, mate.
I was gonna say, or sometimes people see dogs do like human-like behaviors. Like I saw this one video where this dog's supposed longtime companion dog had died, and it was like kicking dirt over the body. And it's like, see, it's sad. I'm like, no, he's thinking I'm gonna save him for later. I'm gonna dig him back up and chew on him.
Yeah, that's it. That's it exactly. Yeah. And that's not to say, you know, that animals, you can see evidence in certain films that animals have empathy for dying of their offspring and things. So they obviously feel that instinctive, like, you know, emotion and stuff. But, you know, I mean, we were watching a nature thing last night with this fucking, I forget what this ugly African bird was, but fuck, it was ugly vulture looking thing. They only breed, the parents only breed one. They breed 2 chicks in case one doesn't survive, but resources are pretty scarce. So they figure out after a few days which one's going to be the stronger of the chicks, and they don't give a fuck that the stronger chick pecks the smaller chick to death, and they don't feed it, and they don't give it any water, and they basically just let it die because they've already figured out which one's going to be the strongest one, and they seem to deliberately let it die, so that they can concentrate all the resources on the stronger one.
Mm. So, nature's fucking brutal. Absolutely.
It certainly is. You bet it is. Yeah. And we're part of it. We're part of nature. Yep. You know. Sure, we got the higher consciousness, and that's one of the reasons why I'm not a big fan of the vegan thing, because I think it's you know, it's rationalizing around our biological necessities and imperatives.
I agree.
Yeah. All right. So, mate, how long have we been at it?
Ooh,
I haven't even got a clock in front of me.
Nearly 2 hours.
Coming up on it.
All right. Shall we wrap it up there, guys? Is there any other particular points you guys wanted to drive home?
I think we've obviously gotten off the beaten track, which is kind of a good indication you should stop, isn't it?
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, you can only talk about. We didn't actually even talk about that. Maybe I think that's how the streams usually go, isn't it? You know, we say that we're going to talk about this topic, and then just fucking talk about whatever comes along. You know.
Yeah. Well, we did, but you know, we don't have the sense to stop, and we just keep going. No, that's what the fans want. We're giving the fans what they want at the end of the day.
Yeah. All right. Well, again, man, congrats on going 70K. You'll get to 100K. You'll be applying for your YouTube plaque. Will be displayed on your wall soon.
Geez, I'll tell you that. I mean, that's one topic maybe we could have talked about, but fucking hell, I'm frustrated with YouTube at the moment. You know, with the demonetization.
I'm just waiting to see what's coming next. Actually, in the last couple of months, I'd have to say most of my videos have actually been green lighted, and it hasn't been anywhere near as tragic as what I expected. They seem to go through my channel again about a week ago. I didn't sort of mention it in any of my videos, but even the ones that were sort of green before, the few that I had left, and other ones, I'm sure there's ones that have been approved that they've now demonetized a second time.
Well, that's my problem. So as I agree with you, like it's actually been better than the sort of April, May, June, July, August problem. So September and October were better, no doubt about it. But I just had a video today demonetized and confirmed by manual review, and it had been demonetized for the 3rd time, right? And it was a video that was getting a lot of views. It had over 100,000 views by now. And so it's obviously a lucrative one. But I put it out 5 or 6 days ago. It got demonetized sometime in the first 24, 36 hours. So I put in a request to have it reviewed, was reviewed, remonetized. 2 days later, demonetized again. Now you can't submit a second review because you've already submitted one, but they automatically review it again. And it was remonetized for a second time. I wake up.
The one that got me was the video of me. I put up a video of me playing in a band I used to be in back in my 20s. And that's all it is. It's not political comment. It's not anything. It's just a song. That's now fucking been demonetized. When I was sure that it's already been, you know, and that's the other thing that annoys me about that is that if you're going to go ahead and green light it, then really what you're admitting is that it's your algorithm, whatever the fuck you call it, it shouldn't have picked it up in the first place.
Exactly. That's
it was demonetized unjustly. And you've been missing out on that income under suspicion of having committed an internet hate crime.
Oh no, that's the point. You know, you like usually if they take 24 hours to pick up your video and then they demonetize it, and well, at least most of your views have probably been seen, so that's good. But this, like I'm telling you, this video today, this one that's been getting, so it got 20,000 videos, 20,000 views by itself last night, right? And it was demonetized the whole time. I get up this morning, it's been remonetized again for the third time. So after it's been yellow flagged 3 times, now it's been green flagged 3 times. And then just before I got on here today, it's been demonetized again, and it says confirmed by manual review. So there's no more chance of appeal. And I want to know why 3 times it was monetized. Why was it? Yeah. And then the 4th time, I mean, it's just fucking bullshit.
What I found really interesting is in my last 10 videos or something, the only one that didn't make it through that got confirmed as demonetized was the Feminist Dictionary, letter C. And it's filed under comedy, right? Yeah. I mean, I think it may have something to do with my definition of the word cavern. Did you guys happen to see that?
Nah.
I said cavern, a vagina so large that if you well, something about if you found yourself lost in there and you bumped into some other guy, that. Oh no, that's if a vagina so large that if you called out hello and got a response, right? In other words, you'd wonder if it was an echo. Mistaken for thinking it was an echo, or you'd bump into some other guy desperately looking for his car keys so you could both drive out of there.
I'll tell you, I'll give you an indication of some of the censorship. So I uploaded a video the other day called "Promoting Mediocrity, Feminist Edition." That was what it was called, "Promoting Mediocrity, Feminist Edition." Demonetized immediately as soon as I uploaded it. So I delete it. Re-uploaded, just call it "Promoting Mediocrity," leave out the Feminist Edition, monetized straight away, hasn't been touched.
There you go. And so there's certainly a keyword element. You know, if you mention Islam, you probably, even if you use the word race.
Race.
You know, and so what I do with that video I did on Tim Sabomazan recently, I made sure I called it race beta and not just the word race, and put race beta together as a single word. Things like that as well. So it's kind of like hardest, but actually it got demonetized and got re-monetized. As I said, I've had a pretty good run. Most of my videos have been getting the green light. I don't say cunt as much as I did, but I certainly make up for it by dropping in a few more fucks.
But see, I don't know what's going on, guys, because I would say out of my last 25 videos, I would say 22 of them have been demonetized. Damn. And I've requested a review of all of them, and all of them have been remonetized except for 3, right? Including the one today. So all of them, so 19 out of 22, apparently. So that means that, I mean, I'm suspicious of people reporting your video and that's getting it demonetized. I didn't think that was part of it, but it's just bizarre because, like you say, the algorithm is clearly fucking up. If the manual review is to be trusted, that the algorithm is picking up things that it shouldn't be picking up. So
I don't seem to have known of any reports, but I thought you got it. If somebody reported you, I thought you got a notification about that.
Yeah, it's I don't know. But there was a video from the YouTube creators or whatever the other day, YouTube team, that said that your video, once it's been approved, won't be demonetized again. Well, that's clearly bullshit, because that's happening on a regular basis with my videos.
Yeah, I was getting it too, and I mean, initially I thought, hang on, I thought that had already been, you know, and now you're really confirming that it's, you know, happens multiple times. Mate, just to darkness, man. I noticed you talked on Twitter a couple of times about having 72-something thousand fucking views taken off your social blade. And
they came back mysteriously.
I noticed you got 77,000 sort of got plugged back in the other day, and it sort of leveled you off again. So a couple of things there, man. That's happened to me a couple of times. I think I lost 140,000 views in one day. People have said to me that they believe that that's butt cleaning.
Butt cleaning?
Yeah, butt cleaning. Yeah, cleaning out the bots, getting rid of all the illegitimate fucking views. I don't know how all of that shit works, right? I don't care, but apparently that's what it is. So I wouldn't stress about it too much. Happens to everybody. And, you know, and look, as far as the growth of your channel thing goes, man, you just have to keep slugging it out. You know, I got stuck on 24,000 where I got, you know, 8,000 views in a week, 8,000 subscribers in a week, and then nothing for nearly 3 months. Yeah. And it just seems to fucking go absolutely nowhere. And you think, well, is this it? But, you know, if you keep slugging away and just keep popping out, you know, if you can possibly churn out a couple of videos a week, it will fucking grow, and it'll grow. It'll
Darkness's problem is he's got actually a real job. That's his problem. He has to make videos around that, whereas I don't. And you were is it talking out of school to talk about your job, Gaz?
Oh, no. Yeah, I mentioned to you in Twitter that at least I'm sort of back to a bit of part-time. It's one day less than what I used to do.
Because
it's I still need the Patreon and the whatever YouTube advertising I can get to try and make up the shortfall. And thanks to the patrons that I've had a couple of decent size contributions as far as Patreon goes, and I just want to thank those 2 people in particular responsible for those larger patronage. I really appreciate that. It does basically make up for the shortfall because I'm not working full time, and it does mean I can create more content on a regular basis. But yeah, no, that's all fine. But it was good to be able to sort of get back to where I was working and not learn to, you know, have to go through the thing of learning something new and being a new starter and a subordinate to everyone and stuff, just back where I was, knowing what I do. You know.
Yeah, that's still my great fear, that I will be forced back into something like that. And that's what I mean. That's why Patreon and people that I got a few people on PayPal and, you know, a few random contributions here and there. It bloody helps, because you just don't know what YouTube's going to do tomorrow. You have no idea.
Yeah, I think there's going to be some sort of you know, third idea that will come out in the next few months that'll, yeah, probably pretty much just kill any incentive completely. You know, and I said to you on Twitter privately, oh, fucking, I'm done with YouTube. And I started setting up VidMe, and I still upload the videos. And I'm glad that I was kind of pushed to do that, because it's sort of backup thing. But I still find that obviously YouTube's where the big audience is.
It's the only game in town, really, to be honest. I mean, that's the reality of it at this point in time.
Yeah, and they know it. So, you know, obviously I'm still going to keep putting videos up on YouTube as much as I can. And it's only, you know, I haven't had any videos actually literally taken down for a long time. So, yeah. All right, guys, going to wrap it up there.
Yep.
Thanks both heaps for saying, yeah, I'll come on and do a stream. I've never done one by myself, and don't know how I'd go with that, you know.
Yeah, I did it. I've been doing it for a couple of months now. I think you get better at it after a while. It's easy to be really fucking boring. It's much easier to, like, you have these, you know, it's easy to have long sort of silences that, you know, that you feel the need to fill with nothing. But I think you get better at it after a while. As long as I make sure
it's probably got helpful if you start a stream and then about 7 minutes in you go, well, guys, I actually really need to take a shit, so I'm just going to leave you here for about 5 or 6 minutes, or however long it takes while I'm gone. I'm just going to mute the sound just in case. All right, guys, look after yourselves, and I'll be speaking to you both behind the scenes. Keep doing what you do, and we'll chat soon. All right, thanks,
Yep.
guys. Take care.
Hey, bye.